South Korea has joined a key donor group of the International Committee of the Red Cross for the first time after making major contributions last year, according to the humanitarian organization.
한국이 작년 국제인도주의 기구인 국제적십자위원회 ICRC를 통해 많은 액수를 기부하면서 기구 내 주요 기부 그룹의 일원이 됐다고 ICRC 측이 밝혔습니다. All right, so tell us about this, Jian.
Yes. So the ICRC, as we have mentioned, is actually the Red Cross Group, the International Committee of the Red Cross Group. And it has a donor support group, which is a group of countries that have lots of contributions or lots of gifts and funds given to other countries in need. And it consists of donors contributing more than 10 million Swiss francs, which is around 11 million US dollars per year. And Korea, obviously, it contributed 10.5 million Swiss francs to the ICRC last year, and that is why it was included in the donor support group. And this year, it also includes 20 other countries, such as the United States, Germany, and Switzerland, as well as the EC, the European Commission.
그러니까 미국 달러로 했을 때 한 1,000만 달러 이상 이제 기부하는 나라들 같은 경우에 이렇게 주요 기부 그룹의 일원이 된다라고 얘기를 하는 거군요. Donor Support Group라고 합니다.
That's right.
그래서 한국이 그 일원이 됐다. 이렇게 발표가 됐는데요. 주요 표현 보겠습니다. Major contributions.
Yes. So a contribution is what you would give to such a humanitarian organization in terms of gifts. I mean gifts as in money.
Right.
Because you don't expect anything in return. It's not like you lend them money. You're just giving it to them because you want to give them aid or support. Major contributions, saying that you have given them a hefty amount.
Right. Contribution이 기여라는 뜻이 있는데요. 우리가 이제 여기서는 돈이라고 봐야겠지만 상황에 따라서는 어떤 그 물리적인, 정신적인 뭐 다양한 기여를
That's
우리가
right.
말할 때도 쓸 수 있겠죠.
That's right.
큰 기여, major contributions. 예문을 주실까요?
So I took a little bit of a different turn. Since we talked about the monetary major contributions, I thought maybe we could have it this way as well. Science has made major contributions to the well-being of mankind.
인류의 웰빙에 있어서 과학이 크게 기여를 했다.
That's right.
자, 그다음에 humanitarian organization.
If you say humanitarian, you can say humanitarian aid also. That means that you are providing whatever activities or whatever support in with the means of providing help for humans. So to the betterment of the people as a whole.
네, humanitarian은 인도주의가 되겠고 organization은 기구가 되겠죠. 여기서 말하는 humanitarian organization은 바로 Red Cross가 되겠습니다. Let me read this headline one more time. South Korea has joined a key donor group of the International Committee of the Red Cross for the first time after making major contributions last year, according to the humanitarian organization. 네, 구체적으로는 이제 ICRC, International Committee of the Red Cross를 말하고 있습니다.
The ceremonial stage, located in front of Gyeongbokgung Palace's Gwanghwamun Gate, or Waldae, was unveiled to the public in a ceremony on Sunday after being restored to its original state for the first time in a century.
경복궁 광화문 앞에 자리 잡은 특별한 공간인 월대가 100년 만에 원형대로 복원돼 일요일인 어제 기념 행사와 함께 일반에 공개됐습니다. 그 앞에 발음이 좀 꼬여가지고요.
Yes.
네, 경복궁 광화문. 네, 다시 읽어도
It's a tongue twister.
쉽지 않네요. 자, 말씀 좀 해주세요.
Yes.
Yeah, tell us about this.
So I think that a lot of our listeners must have seen it on the news as well because it was actually in the media too.
Yeah.
But the Waldae is actually a large square platform. It's built out of stone and it's put in front of major structures like gates or palaces.
Right.
and it's used by kings. So that part is only walked by kings and royalty for royal rituals and ceremonies. It has been restored in just a century. The one that's located in front of the Gwanghwamun, the main gate of Gyeongbokgung Palace, is actually where it's believed to have been the place where the king communicated with, foreign diplomats during national events. And it was like a stage for the king.
Wow. Well, now it's open to the public, so
Yes.
we can all
Feel like
experience
royalty.
it. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Took the words right out of my mouth there. Well, let's have a look at the main expressions here. This is a ceremonial stage.
That's right. So it is literally a stage for ceremonies. So having lots of different ceremonies for the king and for royalty. There were a lot of parades for the king as well. And so that place would be where it starts and where it's held.
Yes. Ceremonial stage라는 것은 그 의식을 행하던 그런 무대가 되겠습니다. 자, 그리고 it's been restored to state.
Yes. So it means that during the years after it was built, it was damaged for some reason. Scholars say that the Woldae itself, the one in front of Gwanghwamun, was destroyed by colonization from Japan. However, it has now come back to what it looked like before when it was first built. That's why it's original state.
아하. Restored는 복원됐다. To its original state. 원형대로 복원이 됐다군요.
Yes.
Give us an example sentence.
So you could say, once burned down, the monument was restored to its original state by a group of experts.
네. 한때는 이제 화재로 인해서 무너졌지만 그 기념비적인 그 모니먼트가 원래 상태대로 원형대로 전문가들에 의해서 복원이 됐다. 이런 예문을 들고 오셨네요.
Yes.
자, 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. The ceremonial stage located in front of Gyeongbok Palace's Gwanghwamun Gate, or Woldae, was unveiled to the public in a ceremony on Sunday after being restored to its original state for the first time in a century. Now,
The Pentagon has ordered a second aircraft carrier strike group to the eastern Mediterranean Sea to deter hostile actions against Israel or any efforts toward widening this war following Hamas's attack on Israel.
미국 국방부가 동지중해에 두 번째 항공모함 전단 배치를 명령하면서 이는 하마스의 이스라엘 공격 이후 이스라엘을 향한 적대 행위나 이 전쟁을 확대하려는 그 어떤 도발도 막기 위한 것이라고 설명했습니다. Okay. So what's the latest? It's a developing story, obviously.
That's right, yes. So the first carrier strike group actually arrived off of the coast of Israel last week, and this was highly publicized. And now the second group was deployed from Virginia on Friday, and it's now headed to the eastern Mediterranean, and it's actually initially set to sail for the waters of the U.S. European Command. Defense officials have said repeatedly, recent days, it's continuously in the media that the Pentagon will be able to flow in additional forces and assets to the region if needed.
Yeah.
And that they will continue to support Israel and to protect Israel if the country continues to fight a war against the terrorist group.
It's as if the situation along the Gaza Strip was just waiting to explode, and
Exactly.
it now has.
Yes.
And so all eyes are on the region right now, and the US, as you just said, is sending its
Yeah.
help and aid in its own right, of course. But this is far from over.
Yes.
And we will have to wait and see what happens. 자, 그러면 표현 보겠습니다. 자, deter라는 표현이 있는데요. 자, quotation marks 안에 있는 것들은 다 그대로 인용이 된 거죠.
That's right.
그래서 미국의 이제 국방부 장관이 한 얘기입니다. To deter hostile actions.
Yes.
이게 뭘까요?
So if you deter something or deter someone from doing something, you're trying to discourage them from doing something by instilling a sense of fear for the consequences. So you're saying that because of what might happen afterwards. Why don't you just stop doing it?
deter, D-E-T-E-R, 뭔가를 저지하다라는 의미가 되고요. 때에 따라서는 뭔가 단념시키다가 될 수도 있을 텐데 적대 행위를 막기 위한 것이다 라는 뜻으로 여기선 썼습니다. Give us an example sentence.
Supporters of the death penalty believe it will deter criminals from committing crimes.
사형제도에 찬성하는 사람들은 이 death penalty가 앞으로 이런 범죄를 막는 데 도움이 된다고 믿는다. 자, 그 다음 표현은요. Any efforts towards widening this wall.
Yes. So you could say any efforts towards spreading this war or aggravating this war. So you could put in different verbs for that part. But any kind of activities or actions that have more consequences in prolonging this war.
Yeah. widen이라는 게 뭔가 넓히다, 확대하다라는 뜻이 있어서 any efforts toward widening this war. 이 전쟁을 확대하려는 확전의 우려가 계속 나오고 있기 때문에 미국 측에서도 이런 말을 하고 있는 것 같습니다. 그런 도발 행위가 생겨나면 안 돼서
That's right.
그래서 미국에서 또 다시 이렇게 항공모함을 배치하겠다 이렇게 발표를 했네요. 다시 읽어보겠습니다. The Pentagon has ordered a second aircraft carrier strike group to the eastern Mediterranean Sea to deter hostile actions against Israel or any efforts toward widening this war following Hamas's attack on Israel.
A recent survey in Korea shows that 3 in 10 adults do not wash their hands after going to the toilet, while only 1 in 10 wash their hands properly by thoroughly scrubbing with soap for at least 30 seconds.
네, 최근 한 국내 조사에 따르면 성인 10명 중 3명은 화장실 이용 후 손을 씻지 않으며 비누를 사용해 30초 이상 손을 꼼꼼하게 문지르며 제대로 씻는 비율은 10명 중 1명에 불과한 것으로 나타났습니다. 설명하시기 전에 선생님은 오늘 용변을 보시고 나서 손을 잘 씻으셨죠?
I did, and I was appalled actually by this report because it's so low.
그러게 말입니다.
Yes.
그래요. 우리는 둘 다 이런 면에서 약간 OCD가 있는
Yes.
사람이다 보니까 사실 굉장히 좀 꼼꼼하게 손을 씻는 편이긴 한데
Exactly.
한번 그 설문조사 결과를 알려주시죠.
Exactly. Well, let's look into the further details. The Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention collaborated with the International Korean Humanitarian Foundation, and they conducted this survey from August 14th to September 13th this year. So it's this year.
Recently.
After COVID.
그러니까요. 우리가 사실 코로나
Yes.
기간 동안에 정말 손 열심히 뭐 거의 대국민 운동처럼 이렇게 손 열심히 씻었잖아요.
Exactly.
근데 지금 이 조사 결과는 최근입니다.
Yes.
8월과 9월 달이라고 하셨나요?
Yes,
네,
exactly.
8월 14일에서 9월 13일까지 한 3,000명 정도를 상대로
Yes.
손을 얼마나 씻는지 안 씻는지 이것을 조사한 건데 보니까 10명 중 7명은 손을 그래도 씻는다. 3명은 씻지 않는다. 그다음에 이제 그냥 씻는지 아니면 이제 꼼꼼히 손 씻는 제대로 손 씻는다라고 표현을 하는 이
After 30
30초 이상
seconds.
그렇죠.
Yeah.
30초 이상 비누칠을 충분히 하면서 이렇게 손 씻는 거는 10명 중 1명뿐이었다고요?
Yes, exactly. And by gender, it was 37.5% of men and 20.4% of women who do not wash their hands. There's also differences by age. With the older the age group, the higher the rate of skipping hand washing. So the younger generation are well taught, I guess. So 20 to 30-year-olds was 23.3%, 40 to 50, 28.4%, and then 60 plus was 36.6%.
그래요. 자, 그러면
Yes.
So much to say.
Yes,
so
I
little
know.
time. Let's have a look at the expressions. properly가 있습니다. Washing your hands properly.
So properly means that thoroughly or in the right way. So if you do something proper, then you do it the right way.
예, 뭔가 제대로 하는 것을 do something properly라고 얘기를 하죠.
That's right.
Give us an example sentence.
Oh, remember to thank your mother properly for the Thanksgiving dinner she cooked for us.
추수감사절 식사를 준비해 주신 어머니에게 제대로 감사를 표해라.
Yes.
네, 그래서 뭔가 제대로 하다. 여기서 말하는 이제 제대로 손 씻기는 30초 이상 비누칠로 꼼꼼하게 손톱 사이사이 손가락 사이사이 다
Exactly.
네, 이렇게 하는 겁니다. 우리가 이제 코로나 기간 동안에 많은 포스터를 통해서도 보고 또 아이들은 학교에서 이제 잘
Yeah.
배우고 그래서 많이들 하는데 물론 우리가 매번 30초 이상씩 손 씻기는 쉽진 않겠지만
Maybe.
그래도 손은 열심히 씻어야겠죠.
Exactly.
It says here for at least 30 seconds.
For at least 30 seconds, meaning that you actually have to do more than 30 seconds. So you have to wash your hands with soap properly for more than 30 seconds.
최소한 뭐뭐뭐 동안 for at least 하고 얼마 동안이 이렇게 나옵니다. 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. A recent survey in Korea shows that 3 in 10 adults do not wash their hands after going to the toilet, while only 1 in 10 wash their hands properly by thoroughly scrubbing with soap for at least 30 seconds.
A domestic flight in Mexico was delayed by almost 3 hours after a swarm of mosquitoes invaded the plane, forcing crew members to spray insect repellent inside the aircraft cabin.
멕시코의 한 국내선 항공기에 모기떼가 침입해 승무원들이 기내 방충제를 뿌려야 하는 상황이 이어지면서 해당 여객기의 운항이 3시간 가까이 지연되는 일이 발생했습니다. Now, we've heard many stories of delays, but mosquitoes being the
Exactly.
culprit, that's new.
And how much is a swarm of mosquitoes if you can actually see the
Exactly.
mosquitoes and you have to actually be delayed by 3 hours?
사진을 보니까 이게
Yeah.
뭔가 좀 뿌예가지고 화질이 그렇게 좋진 않았거든요. 그래서 뿌예서 그냥 봤을 때는 여기 가운데 뭐 묻었나? 그렇게 생각할 수 있지만 그게 아니라 모기떼가 이렇게 굉장히 많아가지고요.
와우.
약간의 이런 회색 안개 같은 게 좀 만들어졌더라고요.
would
굉장히 많았습니다.
Be eaten alive.
그러게요.
You and I would not
Yep.
survive.
Exactly. 자,
Yes.
so this was which airlines?
Yeah, the Volaris Airlines. The plane was about to depart from Guadalajara to Mexico City when this infection or the swarm of mosquitoes made its way into the cabin. So this was a video shot by a passenger, and the passenger actually shows the flight attendants walking up and down with the insect repellent, spraying the cabin, and they say that it's not the first time that this has happened.
Oh, I see.
Because the Guadalajara International Airport says that it always rests on stagnant water, and that is where lots of mosquitoes usually lay their eggs.
So the airport itself
Yes.
is surrounded by that sort of land there.
That's
we can
right.
assume. 자, 그래요. 그 지역 자체가 이렇게 모기떼들이 많이 서식하는 지역이다 보니까 또 이런 일이 발생했네요. Stagnant water 그러면 가만히 있는 고인물을 말하고
That's right.
있습니다. 자, 표현 보겠습니다. A swarm of something.
Yes, a swarm of something means that it's kind of like a herd of something, a large group of usually living creatures. So it's used to depict a large group of animals or insects, birds, but it could be used for people as well. And it could also be used on social media when you have a massive surge of attention. Also, when you have an overwhelming surge of emotions or thoughts, then you can also use that as well.
A swarm of something. 만약에 이게 벌레나 동물이나 뭐 모기나 이런 거일 때는 무엇 떼가 되겠고요. 벌떼처럼 a swarm of bees.
Yes.
사람한테 썼을 때는 무리가 되겠죠. 굉장히 많은 사람들. 아니면 지금 말한 것처럼 a surge of emotions.
Yeah.
감정에도 쓸 수 있겠군요. Give us an example sentence.
A swarm of tourists were taking photos in front of the Mona Lisa.
모나리사 사진을 찍기 위해서 많은 관광객들이 몰려들었다. 이런 느낌이네요. 자, 그리고 insect repellent.
Yes, this is something to keep in handy when you have a swarm of mosquitoes. It's what kills insects.
Yeah.
What keeps them off.
repellent라는 것 자체가 이게 퇴치하기 위한 것을 말하잖아요.
That's
그래서
right.
무언가를 멀리 떨어지게 하는 것. insect repellent는 그래서 방충제가 되겠습니다. All right. Well, here it is one more time. A domestic flight in Mexico was delayed by almost 3 hours after a swarm of mosquitoes invaded the plane, forcing crew members to spray insect repellent inside the aircraft cabin. 자, 지금까지 뉴스캐스터 조주연과 함께 오늘의 headlines 살펴봤습니다. Paul?
The Korea Price Research Center has released a special report on the costs of daily necessities over the past 50 years, revealing that ramyeon today is 8 times more expensive than in 1978, while the price of guksu noodles has gone up 18-fold.
한국물가협회는 지난 50년간 생필품을 비롯한 주요 품목의 국내 가격을 조사한 특별 자료를 공개했습니다. 이에 따르면 라면 가격은 1978년보다 8배, 국수 가격은 18배 오른 것으로 나타났습니다. Everything's more expensive, obviously, than it was 50 years ago.
Yeah, I think we take that for granted.
Yes, but
it's,
it's interesting to have a look at how much things have gone up.
yes, and it's interesting that they chose my birth year to do it with.
Oh.
1978, we've got statistics from. I should say I'm not 50, I'm 45.
아니, 여기서 사실 이제 자료는 1973부터의 자료가
네.
있는데요.
But we're talking about ramen in particular from 1978.
그렇습니다. 라면하고 국수 같은 경우에는 기준점을 78년으로 잡고 이렇게 비교를 해서 지금 이렇게 분석을 한 그런 내용이고 자료 자체는 한국물가협회가 50주년을 맞아서 1973년부터 지금까지 이렇게 지난 50년간의 이 데이터를 분석해서 발표했다면서요?
Yes. So ramen, 1978, it was 100 won for a 120 gram packet. Very cheap if we think of today's money. However, now it's surged to 820 won in 2023.
Yeah.
So we've seen an 8-fold increase. When we look at another kind of noodles, the guksu noodles, the noodles we use in our soups, they were 155 won in 1978 for 900 grams. They're now 2,790 won, 18 times more. So we're seeing big increases in the price of noodles, but again, well, we've seen big changes in Korea during 50 years.
We're not keeping into consideration the inflation rate, of
course
We're
not.
just looking at the actual price.
Yes. And if you smell something fishy, it's because I want to talk about mackerel now. What's
고등어.
really interesting, because it's one of the most popular fishes in Korea. I had it over the weekend, grilled. It was delicious. However, it has increased in price by 6-fold. So in 1988, which is the earliest year they had this data, it was 800 won for a fish. This year, it's 4,580 won for a fish.
아, 그렇군요. You had grilled mackerel over the weekend.
I did. I went to Sokcho, which is a wonderful place to have fresh fish, and had the most delicious grilled mackerel.
네, 그 고등어 구이 이렇게 표현을 하는 거죠. 네, 고등어 가격도 역시 6배나 올랐다고 합니다. 물론 이제 절대적인 가격을 보고 비교를 하는 것이기 때문에 뭐 여러 가지로 사실 물가도 감안하고 그렇다고 한다면은 좀 다른 통계가 나오겠지만 그냥 이제 단순 비교를 하는 거죠. 50년 전과 지금 가격이 얼마나 달라졌는가 이런 특별 자료를 한 140페이지가 넘는 자료가 이렇게 나왔습니다. 여러분도 관심 있으시면 한번 찾아보시기 바라겠고요. 자, 표현 보겠습니다. This is statistics on the daily necessities and prices of those.
Yes, the daily necessities are the things we need every day. So, for example, in Korea, I would say one of the daily necessities is rice, another is kimchi. And for many people, going to work is coffee.
Yeah.
Those might be your daily necessities, the things that you're using on a daily basis and you can't really live without.
And of course, we're not just talking about food, it's products as well.
Yeah, it could be shampoo, it could be soap, it could be washing powder, whatever it may be. It's the things we're using every day.
자, 그래서 생필품 정도로 볼 수 있겠죠. 매일매일 쓰는 것들. 그리고 reveal something. 이 report가 it reveals something.
Yeah, when we use it in terms of information, it means it shows. Whereas if we're talking about physically revealing something, let's say there's a new statue and it's covered with a big white cloth, and then the mayor of whichever city comes and reveals the statue to the public for the first time.
Right.
It shows it.
공개하다, reveal까지 봤습니다. Well, here's the headline again. The Korea Price Research Center has released a special report on the costs of daily necessities over the past 50 years, revealing that ramen today is 8 times more expensive than in 1978, while the price of kuksu noodles has gone up 18-fold.
The number of marriages registered in China last year plunged for the 9th consecutive year to 6.8 million couples, marking only half of the marriage registrations recorded 10 years ago.
지난해 중국의 혼인 신고 건수가 680만 건을 기록하면서 9년 연속 감소세를 이어갔습니다. 이는 10년 전의 절반밖에 안 되는 숫자입니다. Less and less people are getting married.
Yes, they are, and they're getting married at an older age.
Yes.
That seems to be one of the reasons for this decline. So, for example, the number of couples who are getting married between the ages of 20 to 24, they were only 15.2% of the total of last year's marriages.
Yeah.
And that's down by about 1.3 percentage points from 2021, but 20 percentage points from 2012 and 22.4 percentage points from 2010. So we're seeing a big decrease in younger people getting married. Mm-hmm. The other issue is the declining population.
Of course.
So here, people of marriageable age, people who are thinking about getting married, there's less of them about. And so we're seeing this fall in population contributing to the decrease in marriages as well.
Yeah, the actual population, 실제로 이제 전체 인구 자체도 has gone down. 뚝 떨어졌을 뿐만 아니라 결혼을 하는 연령대도 올라가고 있고 여러 가지로 지금 결혼 건수, 혼인 건수 자체가 지금 많이 떨어졌다라는 걸 설명해 주셨는데요. 자, 표현 좀 보겠습니다. The number of marriages registered has plunged.
Yes, there's been a steep drop. I like to think of a diver when I think of the word plunge. A diver plunging into the water from a great height. So when something plunges, it's not just a short drop or a small drop. It's going to be a big drop. And often very sudden, very fast.
뚝 떨어지다.
Yes, but there's also a great expression, which I think is good to know, to take the plunge.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when you get married.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, it means you do something that maybe feels a little bit scary or you have to be really brave to do it. But if you do it, maybe there'll be a big reward or a big pleasure from it.
Do something very courageous.
Exactly.
Right? 용기 내서 무언가를 할 때 take the plunge라고 합니다. 마치 이제 다이빙을 하는 것처럼 정말 각오를 하고 이렇게 큰 일을 앞두고 있을 때 I'm gonna take the plunge.
네.
근데 이제 대표적인 예가 결혼이라는 거죠.
Yes, we often use it when referring to getting married.
아하, 그래요. 선생님도 요 take the plunge를 하셨군요.
I took the plunge in 2008.
I see. Now, talking about marriages, marriage registration.
Yes, so this term registration, we use it to say when we get married, we are registering with the state, with the government,
Yeah.
in the same way that I'm sure you did when you got married, and I did when I got married. We went to the British Embassy, and then we went to the Cheongno office, I forget the proper name of it,
Yeah.
to register our marriage, to put it on official records.
네, 등록하는 거를 register 한다라고 하고요. marriage registration 그러면은 혼인 신고가 되겠죠. 그렇다면은 뭐 출생 신고 같은 경우는 birth registration.
Exactly. Anything that we're officially reporting will be a registration of some kind.
네, 그래요. 공식적으로 뭔가 등록하거나 신고할 때 register 한다고 합니다. Here's the headline one more time. The number of marriages registered in China last year plunged for the 9th consecutive year to 6.8 million couples, marking only half of the marriage registrations recorded 10 years ago.
Business heir Daniel Noboa has won Ecuador's presidential election, becoming the country's youngest ever president at 35 after winning by a margin of around 5 points over his rival, the leftist lawyer Luisa Gonzalez.
에콰도르 대통령 선거에서 재벌 후계자인 다니엘 노보아 후보가 좌파 변호사 출신의 루이사 곤살레스 후보를 약 5% 차로 누르고 35세의 나이로 에콰도르 최연소 대통령으로 당선됐습니다. Okay, so this just happened over the weekend. Tell us about it.
Quite an achievement. 35 years old, president of a country. I'm not sure how Daddy Noboa feels about it because his father,
Yeah.
Alvaro Noboa, he ran for the presidency 5 times and lost 5
unsuccessful.
times.
Yeah.
But his son has done it. The thing is, he's not going to serve a full term, at least at first.
Okay.
What happened was the outgoing President Guillermo Lasso dissolved Parliament. There's an impeachment trial going on. And so this election was triggered early, which means that President Noboa will only govern until May 2025, 17 months in office before there will be another election. But certainly...
He can run again.
He can run again, and he's breaking records, being the youngest ever president of Ecuador.
그래요. 이 재벌 후계자라고 했는데 바나나 사업을 하죠, 집안에서. 그래서 이제 많은 외신 기사에서는 banana magnate, banana heir 이렇게 나와 있는데 그런 이제 다니엘 노보아가 에콰도어의 새 대통령으로 선출이 됐습니다. 일단은 2025년까지 전임자의 임기까지 이제 채우고 그러고 나서 또 다시 이제 he could run for president again. 그럼 표현을 한번 보도록 하겠습니다. 우리 heir라는 표현 몇 번 썼는데요. H-E-I-R, not hair, but heir.
Yes, the heir to the throne or the heir to the business would be the person who will inherit it after the owner or the ruler passes away. I think the best example I can give is King Charles. That's the most obvious one to me, that he was heir to the throne until Queen Elizabeth II passed away, and then he became king.
He was the heir for the longest time.
He was, and people were speculating whether he'd only ever be heir and never actually king, but he finally was crowned earlier this year.
네, 지금은 이제 영국의 찰스 3세 국왕이지만 굉장히 오랫동안은 후계자로서 살았죠. 엘리자베스 2세 여왕, 뭐라 그래야 되나? 돌아가실 때까지 기다려야 되는 그런 운명을 타고난 그런 찰스 왕자였죠. 꽤 오랫동안. 그러다가 he was the heir, but finally he became the king. 네, 그래서 그거 관련되면 농담도 많이 하고 영국에서 사실 그동안 얘기를 했어요. 그냥 평생 이렇게 heir로만 살다가 그 다음에 아들한테 가는 거 아니야? 뭐 이런 얘기도 했었거든요.
Yeah, because we think of kings and queens being crowned when they're young, but King Charles is in his 70s.
Exactly. Now, if you win by a margin of 5%, what does that mean?
It's the amount between the two of you, and in this case, the two candidates. So we talk about winning by a margin of something or losing by a margin of something, is saying by that amount, because a margin is the between part.
Yeah.
If you think of your textbooks, if you're at school or when you went to school, there would often be a margin.
But not in Korean textbooks.
Oh, really?
No.
Well, then that example doesn't really work, does it?
그러게요. 저도 그게 가장 이제 공책을 봤을 때 문화 차이로 많이 와닿던 것 중에 하나인데 영국에서는요. 아마 미국도 그럴 거예요. 학생들의 공책 왼쪽에 보면은 이렇게 세로로 된 줄이 하나 있어요. 그걸 마진이라고 부릅니다. 그래가지고 항상 이렇게 가장 왼쪽에서 한 칸 띄고 글을 쓸 수밖에 없는 세로선이 쫙 그어져 있으니까. 근데 한국 공책들은 그냥 세로선 같은 거 없어요. 그냥 가로선만.
Well, we had to draw them in. When I was at school, we had to draw our own margins with a ruler.
없으면은 선생님이 draw a margin. 이렇게 얘기를 하셨었군요.
Yeah, every morning the teacher would put a margin in your book.
그렇게 했던 것 같기도 하네요. 좀 가물가물한데 그래서 항상 왼쪽에 바로 붙여서 쓰지 말고 마진 그려서 한 칸 띄어서 써라 이렇게 했던 기억이 납니다. 자, 그게 마진이에요. 한 칸이거든요. 그래서 by a margin이라는 거는 어떠한 차이로 by a margin of around 5%, 약 5%의 차이로 그래서 대선 선거에서 승리를 했다. 다시 읽어보겠습니다. Business heir Daniel Noboa has won Ecuador's presidential election, becoming the country's youngest ever president at 35, after winning by a margin of around 5 points over his rival, the leftist lawyer Luisa Gonzalez.
A French startup is preparing for a 20-day-long non-stop journey aboard a 151-metre-long rigid airship that will be filled with 50,000 cubic metres of helium and will circumnavigate the globe without any fossil fuels being used.
프랑스의 한 스타트업이 5만 세제곱미터의 헬륨을 채운 길이 151m의 비행선을 타고 화석연료 사용 전혀 없이 20일간 무착륙으로 지구를 도는 비행을 계획 중이라고 밝혔습니다. Yeah, what's happening here? That sounds like the latest in terms of flying around the world.
Yeah, well, the startup is called Euro Airship, and they've been working on this airship for a decade now. And what they've done is they've created what they've called Solar Airship 1. And they're going to have a propulsion system that's going to get its energy from solar powers during the day. And at night, it's going to use hydrogen to power it. And if everything goes well, they're going to take off in 2026. They're going to fly from west to east 40,000 kilometers without landing at any point, without touching down, at about 6,000 meters up in the air on average. And they think it's going to go for 20 to 30 days, and it'll be quite incredible if they do.
Yeah, it's a non-stop journey. 무착륙으로 이렇게 지구를 20일 정도나 돌 수 있다고 하는데 낮에는 태양열로, 밤에는 헬륨으로 이렇게 에너지를 얻는다고 합니다. 자, 표현 볼게요. A rigid plane.
Yes, if something is rigid, it is hard. It is not soft. It is not malleable. It is stiff. We were talking about margins. I drew my margins with a ruler.
Yeah.
A ruler is rigid. You can't bend it. If you try to bend it, it'll probably break. So anything that is very hard, is stiff, is rigid.
그러니까 공기만으로 채워진 airship도 있죠. 그럼 non-rigid airship라고 할 수 있을 텐데 그게 아니라 이제 뻣뻣한, 단단하고 휘어지지 않는 그런 구조, 뼈대가 있는 구조로 만들어진 비행선을 rigid airship라고 합니다.
So
rigid.
the best comparison of something that's not rigid would be a hot air balloon.
Exactly. 네, 바로 그거죠. 공기로 채워진 hot air balloon 열기구가 non-rigid airship이고요. rigid하다, 아주 이제 단단하고 뻣뻣한 것을 얘기합니다. And what about to circumnavigate?
Okay, so first of all, the word navigate means to travel somewhere, to find your way somewhere. If you circumnavigate, you're going all the way around something. Quite frankly, it's usually going to be the Earth.
Yeah.
So we think of Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. That we have, fog circumnavigating the globe, meaning going all the way around the globe.
네, 두 부분으로 나눠서 볼 수 있어요. 한 단어지만 circum은 돌다, navigate는 어디를 이제 가다라는 뜻이 있어서 우리 차에 있는 navigation 있잖아요. 그 단어처럼 navigate, circumnavigate는 일주를 하다. 여기선 세계 일주가 되겠고요.
To travel around the circumference.
That's right. 또 참고로 우리가 보통 말하는 이 내비게이션을 영어로는 보통 GPS device라고 합니다. Here's the headline one more time. A French startup is preparing for a 20-day-long non-stop journey on board a 151-meter-long rigid airship that will be filled with 50,000 square meters of helium and will... no, not square. Is it
cubic meters.
Cubic meters, excuse me there. Cubic meters of helium and will circumnavigate the globe without any fossil fuels being used.
I tell you what, Sue, I too, when I was looking at this headline, I had to think carefully. It's been a long time since I've had to say cubic on air.
네, 이것도 우리 같이 짚고 넘어가면 좋을 것 같은데요. 제곱일 때는 square, 그다음에 meters, kilometers, centimeters 이렇게 하면 되고요. 그다음에 세제곱일 때는 cubic. meters, kilometers, centimeters 이렇게 붙이면 됩니다. 그래서 50,000 cubic meters.
Scientists have discovered sealed jars of wine from 5,000 years ago in a tomb belonging to an Egyptian queen believed to have been the most powerful woman in the period and possibly the first female pharaoh of ancient Egypt.
과학자들이 한 이집트 여왕의 묘에서 5,000년 전에 봉인된 와인 항아리들을 발견했습니다. 이 여왕은 당시 가장 막강한 권력을 가진 여성으로 보이며 고대 이집트 최초의 여성 파라오였을 가능성도 있습니다. Okay, this is from 5,000 years ago.
Yes, and this is at the Egypt's first royal cemetery. This is in the Abydos Desert. And this sealed jars of wine were found in the grave goods of Queen Merit Neith. And she dates from 3000 BC. So hence we have that 5,000-year history. She was the only woman to have her own monumental tomb at this first royal cemetery. And what they found is various inscriptions that say that she was responsible for things like the treasury as part of the government. And sort of it indicates that she was very, very important in ancient Egyptian history. And so you have this huge tomb complex. There are not just the tomb of the queen, but the tombs of 41 courtiers and servants. And we have these incredible sealed jars of wine.
네, 한 기원전 3000년경의 것으로 보이는 것이 발견이 된 거죠. 그래서 지금으로부터 한 5000년 전이라고 얘기를 한 것인데 막강한 권력을 지녔던 그런 여왕의 것으로 보여진다가 되겠습니다. 자, sealed wine jars.
Meaning completely closed. If something is sealed, it is shut to the world. So, for example, you have a sealed envelope that you have to break open. You have a sealed bottle of wine where you have to pull out the cork. My favourite use of the word sealed is in the acronym SWALK.
SWALK.
Do you know the acronym SWALK?
Well, I know SWAC. Maybe it's similar.
I think it is. It's SWALK,
Yeah.
sealed with a loving kiss.
Oh, I didn't know about the loving part, but sealed with a kiss.
Well, obviously you weren't loved.
Is it a hateful kiss then?
I don't know. Anyway, yes, so it used to be written, we're talking like in the early 20th century, when you were writing a letter to the boy or girl you loved, you might write SWALK.
Yeah.
And that was because when you sealed the envelope, you kissed the envelope.
Oh, now I realise that whoever sent me that letter didn't send it with a loving kiss. It was
I'm terribly sorry.
a normal average kiss. Oh my goodness. 자, 이게 뭐냐면은요. 예전에는 우리가 편지를 많이 주고 받았었잖아요. 연애 편지 같은 거. 그럴 때 이제 좀 귀엽게 청소년들이 편지 봉투에다가 약자 SWALK 이렇게 선생님은 설명해 주셨고 저는 SWAK로 알고 있었는데 이게 뭐냐면 내가 사랑하는 뽀뽀로 이 봉투를 봉인했다. 이런 굉장히 닭살스러운 멘트입니다. 네, 그래서 뭐 러빙이 들어가든 안 들어가든 어쨌든 키스했다 뭐 이런 거죠. 사랑하는 누구누구에게 내가 이 봉투를 이렇게 뽀뽀를 해서 seal한 거야 라는 그런 재밌는 단어도 있습니다. seal이 뭔지 아시겠죠? 이게 딱 붙이는 거, 봉인하는 것을 말합니다. 자, pharaoh는요?
Well, Pharaoh is a kind of king or queen, but they were
Yeah.
more special than that.
The pronunciation is different. In Korea, we say 파라오.
Yes, but here because it's spelt Pharaoh, like we say elephant and telephone, the PH becomes an F sound, so we say Pharaoh.
And even the A sound at the start, it's not pharaoh, but it's pharaoh.
Yes.
네, 발음이 좀 우리말이랑 달라서요. 이거 주의하시면 될 것 같습니다. 우리가 흔히 말하는 파라오를 영어로는 pharaoh라고 한다는 거. 자, 다시 읽어보겠습니다. Scientists have discovered sealed jars of wine from 5,000 years ago in a tomb belonging to an Egyptian queen believed to have been the most powerful woman in the period and possibly the first female pharaoh of ancient Egypt. Karen?
U.S. President Joe Biden is set to visit Tel Aviv on Wednesday in a show of solidarity as Israel prepares for a ground offensive in Gaza.
이스라엘이 가자 지구에서 지상 공격을 준비하는 가운데 조 바이든 미국 대통령이 수요일인 오늘 연대의 의미로 이스라엘을 방문합니다. 자, 바로 몇 시간 전에 미국에서 출발했다라는 소식이 외신을 통해서 전해지고 있습니다. 지금 가자 지구에 여러 가지 일들이 일어나고 있는데요. I think the latest is the attack from Israel
Right.
on a hospital. About 500 people are reportedly dead. Tell us about this meeting that is set to take place between the U.S. president and Israel.
Right. So the U.S. President, Joe Biden, he will be on a diplomatic mission to the Middle East. As we mentioned, he will be in Tel Aviv for talks with the Israeli Prime Minister. And the U.S. Secretary of State has already been to Israel twice since the Hamas attack on October 7th. Biden will, after the meeting in Tel Aviv, he's going to then fly to Jordan for talks about accelerating humanitarian assistance.
This just in, that meeting has just been cancelled from Jordan's part. So it looks like he's only going to be meeting with his Israeli counterpart.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were supposed to be 3 meetings.
Right.
Only one is going to take
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, so lots of things happening in Gaza. As you mentioned, the hospital attack. So news just coming in. Lots of things happening over the weekend. And this will be, of course, as we mentioned, in a show of solidarity as Israel is preparing for that ground offensive in Gaza.
보통 이렇게 지금 우리가 보도하면서도 진행 중인 그런 경우에는 this is a developing story.
Right.
이렇게 얘기를 합니다. 다 끝난 상황이 아니라 현재도 계속 진행 중이고요. 계속해서 업데이트가 들어오고 있기 때문에 시시각각 조금씩 달라지는 그 소식들도 있는데 이제 가장 최근 소식이라기보다 이제 방금 전에 들어온 소식입니다. 업데이트에 따르면은 이스라엘 군이 이제 가자의 병원을 포격을 가해서 거기 한 500명 정도가 지금 사망을 했다라고 하는데요. 가자에 있는 이 병원에는 환자뿐만 아니라 거기서 지금 대피를 하려고 하는 많은 사람들도 모여 있었기 때문에 사실상 지금 전혀 안전한 곳이 없다라고 볼 수 있겠고요. And that's why, of course, the Palestinian side is saying that we're not going to meet with the US president. It's off the table.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of things are right now up in the air. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we do know for sure the US is going to show its support.
Right. So, going over the word solidarity, you mentioned support. That's exactly what this word means. It means showing support for each other, for another group, especially in this sort of political or international affair sort of situation. So it means unity or agreement or of feeling or action, especially among individuals with a common interest, mutual support within a group.
네, 지금 계속해서 이렇게 사상자도 나오고 있고요. 양측에서 공격이 이어지고 있는 상황이기 때문에 미국 대통령이 직접 방문을 함으로 인해서 물론 이스라엘 측의 그런 어떤 연대를 조금 더 강화하려는 의미도 당연히 있겠지만 또 확전을 방지하려는 그런 큰 의도로 볼 수 있겠고요. 여기서 solidarity라는 게 그런 support, 연대라는 의미가 되겠습니다.
Right.
예문 주시죠.
Okay, so for example, people protesting the war gathered for a march in a show of solidarity.
네, 이 보통 지금 설명하신 것처럼 a show of solidarity 아니면 a show of support 반드시 가 들어가야 되고요. 이렇게 덩어리 표현으로 많이 씁니다. 내가 너와 함께한다라는 것을 보여주기 위한 거죠.
Yeah, togetherness.
That's right. What about the other expression, ground offensive?
Right, ground offensive. Ground, it literally means the ground, and it's a military term that's used very often. It's a military action that's launched by land or on ground. It uses ground troops, and it's usually a planned attack that's made by a large group of soldiers.
지상 공격이 되겠습니다. 자, 그러면은 다시 한번 제가 읽어보겠습니다. US President Joe Biden is set to visit Tel Aviv on Wednesday in a show of solidarity as Israel prepares for a ground offensive in Gaza.
The European Union has announced plans to launch a humanitarian air bridge operation consisting of several flights to Egypt, aiming to bring supplies to humanitarian organizations on the ground in Gaza.
유럽연합 EU가 팔레스타인 민간인들을 위한 인도주의적 공수작전을 펼칠 계획을 밝혔습니다. 이 작전으로 EU는 이집트로 여러 차례 항공편을 보내 가자 지구에 있는 인도주의 기구에 물자를 공급하게 됩니다. It's not only the US that's showing support, but the EU as well. But of course, in this case, we're looking at the EU helping people in Gaza, because there are obviously a lot of casualties there too. Tell us about this.
Right. So diplomatic efforts to arrange a ceasefire to let aid reach the Gaza Strip failed earlier. So they say the first 2 flights will take place this week, carrying humanitarian cargo from UNICEF, including shelter items, medicine, hygiene kits, other things that will be needed in that area. And of course, Israel ordered the evacuation of villages in that strip near its border with Lebanon. And this has raised fears that the war could spread to a new front as well.
And we don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Let's look at the main expressions from this headline. The first one is humanitarian air bridge operation.
Right. So looking at air bridge, something might come to mind, something in the air,
Yeah.
a bridge in the air, but that's exactly what it means. It's a link between two places that's provided by air transport, and it happens especially during a conflict or maybe a blockade or any other emergency sort of situation. Humanitarian, it means supporting people that are in extreme need, like the people currently in that area in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, the Palestinians in this case.
That's right. And, it's in areas that are affected by conflicts or disasters. Operation, it's an organized and concerted activity involving a number of people, especially members of the armed forces or police, like a rescue operation.
네, 일단 이제 인도주의적이다, humanitarian이라는 표현과 더불어서 air bridge. 말 그대로 그림을 그리시면 될 것 같아요. 하늘에 떠 있는 달이라는 뜻이잖아요. 그래서 이게 바로 공수 작전의 그 공수에 해당이 되겠고, operation이 작전입니다.
Yep.
And this aims to help the people there, the civilians.
Right. So aiming to, intending to, or having the intention of achieving something. So for example, the company is aiming to increase sales with a new ad campaign.
네. aim to do something, 무엇 하는 것을 목표로 하다. 그래서 새로운 광고 캠페인을 통해서 매상을 올리려고 하는 회사의 계획, 그런 예문을 가져오셨네요. 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. The European Union has announced plans to launch a humanitarian air bridge operation consisting of several flights to Egypt, aiming to bring supplies to humanitarian organizations on the ground in Gaza.
Parents raising 2 or more minors will be eligible to apply for civil service positions for up to 10 years after retirement, according to Korea's Ministry of Personnel Management.
미성년 자녀를 2명 이상 키우는 부모는 퇴직 후 10년까지 공무원 경력직 채용에 응시할 수 있게 된다고 인사혁신처가 발표했습니다. Okay, so let's have a look at this briefly. There's 2 parts to it, I believe.
Right. So the ministry has decided to relax the requirements for recognizing work experience for parents with minors or children, I guess, underage children in public service career recruitment. So for people who have retired for, I guess, up to 10 years, they'll be able to reapply perhaps or apply for civil service positions. So that's one aspect of it. And then there will also be a promotion preference for public servants level 8 and below with multiple children, 2 or more. So each ministry will determine the specific requirements for parents who have 2 or more kids, and they will be basically given, I guess, brownie points for having more children when they are being considered for promotions.
Basically, this is just another way to help people in Korea raise children and encourage more people to have children.
To have kids, right? Because as we say, Korea has one of the lowest birth rates, or maybe the lowest birth rate in the world. I'm not sure, we keep hearing about it in the news, but just another incentive for people to try to have more children. And they're starting from, I think, the civil sector.
Yeah, so many surveys show that people in their teens and early 20s, they don't want to have children.
Yeah.
And so the government is doing everything it can in many ways to try and make it at least a little bit easier.
Yeah.
자, 그러니까 그동안에는요, 퇴직 후 3년 이내의 경우에만 경력을 인정받아서 경력 채용에 응시할 수 있었지만, 이제 앞으로는 미성년 자녀를 키우는 경우, 2명 이상의 미성년 자녀를 키우는 경우에는 퇴직 후 10년까지 경력을 인정하겠다, 이렇게 얘기를 하고 있고요. Another part to this story is people who are currently civil servants. As you mentioned, they'll get brownie points or they can get promoted if they are, again, raising a lot of children. But this is for people level 8 and under, right?
Right. So I thought, last week we talked about the Nobel Prize in Economics and how there's been research done on the gender gap, the gender wage gap. And I was thinking, this story kind of ties in because women, the research says that women have basically, they've been getting paid less because of having children.
네, exactly. 맞습니다. 자, 그러니까 현직 8급 이하의 공무원 같은 경우에 다자녀를 키우고 있다라고 하면은요 승진에 필요한 가산점이 부여가 된다라는 그런 내용이 되겠고요. 지금까지는 이제 이게 어떤 안이에요, proposal이고
Yes.
빠르면은 내년 1월부터 적용이 될 수도 있다고 합니다. 아직은 이제 입법 과정 중에 있는데요. 이렇게 지금 안이 나온 과정을 저희가 뉴스로 전해드리고 있고 표현 보겠습니다. The first one is eligible.
Right, eligible. So having the right to obtain something or satisfying the appropriate conditions. And we also use this word, interestingly enough, you could be also an eligible bachelor,
Yeah.
meaning you're a desirable or suitable as a partner in marriage.
맞아요. eligible bachelor 그러면은 싱글남인데 누구나 다
Yes.
데이트하고 싶고 결혼하고 싶어 하는
Right.
정말
눈독 들이는.
우리말로 뭐라고 해야 될까요? 굉장히 많은 사람들이 결혼하고 싶어 하는 그런 상대 이런 느낌인 거죠.
혼기가 꽉 찬.
네, 그런데 그냥 bachelor는 그냥 누구나 뭐 결혼 안 한 남성은 다 bachelor라고
Right.
하지만 eligible bachelor라고 하면은요. 이게
뭐 나이도 적당하고
네, 모든 게 다
직업도
완벽해.
적당하고.
그렇죠.
네.
네, 그렇습니다. 그래서 예전에는 프린스 해리가 the world's most eligible
Oh, yes,
bachelor
yes.
이렇게 얘기했었고 또 그거보다도 한참 전에는 뭐 조지 클루니가 eligible bachelor
Yes.
뭐 이렇게 타이틀을 가지고 있었지만 뭐 다 유부남입니다.
Yeah,
지금은.
they're all taken.
자, eligible이라는 게 원래 그래서 뭔가를 할 조건이 된다라는 의미가 되겠고요. 그리고 civil service positions.
Civil service positions. So a civil servant is someone that works for the government, but not in a political or a judicial position.
공무원 civil servant 그리고 civil service position은 공무원직을 말합니다. Here it is one more time. Parents raising 2 or more minors will be eligible to apply for civil service positions for up to 10 years after retirement, according to Korea's Ministry of Personnel Management.
Experts say the stress that often comes with renting can have significant effects on health, even greater than being obese or unemployed.
주택을 임차하는 세입자 생활에서 오는 스트레스가 비만이나 실직보다 더 건강에 해로울 수 있다는 전문가 진단이 나왔습니다. 아니, 집 없는 것도 서러운데 근데 거기로부터 오는 스트레스가 더 빨리 늙게 한다. 이런 연구 결과죠.
Yes, it can really it can cause faster biological aging, they say. Yeah.
생물학적인 노화가 실제로 이렇게 렌팅을 하는 사람한테 많이 오더라. 거기서 오는 스트레스 때문에.
So this was from I think a British article, and they
Yes.
mentioned social housing and private renting. Social housing, I kind of took it as something in Korea we call it 임대주택.
공공임대주택.
Right. So government-owned housing that's rented out to the public for relatively cheaper prices.
That's
right. So they're saying that just renting privately or falling behind with rent payments or living in a home that's affected by pollution, according to this research that was done, it was linked with faster biological aging. And biological aging here refers to the decline in functioning with the body's tissue, cells, regardless of actual age.
네. 이 조사는요. 영국인들 한 1,400명을 대상으로 한 겁니다. 그래서 이제 주거 형태를 주로 봤는데요. 거기에서 받는 스트레스를 DNA와 그다음에 혈액 샘플 채취해 가지고 분석을 했대요. 그래서 지금 노화의 속도가 어떤가 주거 형태에 따라서 봤더니 그 일반적으로 그냥 그 세를 주고 외국에는 전세는 없으니까 다 월세겠죠.
Right.
네, 그렇게 세입자 같은 경우에는 공공임대주택에 사는 사람보다 훨씬 더 많이 스트레스를 받고 그 정도가 아니라 뭐 이렇게 술 담배 하는 사람이나 비만인 사람이나 실직한 사람보다도 스트레스를 더 많이 받아서 그로 인한 노화의 속도가 더 빠르더라.
Much faster, right? So, like you mentioned, in this study, people who lived in social housing, they seem to fare better,
Right.
partly because of the security that it offered,
Yes.
and also because of the lower costs.
그래요. 그래서 social housing 이런 공공임대주택인데 똑같이 임대지만 공공임대주택은 그래도 경제적인 부담이 좀 덜하기 때문에 실제로 스트레스를 측정했을 때 좀 더 낮았대요. 뭐
Right.
많이 낮은 건 아니지만 그래도 상대적으로 좀 낮았고 그다음에 그냥 일반 집에서 세입자로 사는 사람들의 경우에는 스트레스 레벨이 굉장히 컸답니다.
Yeah.
매달 내가 이걸 내야 된다라는
Right.
그런 스트레스
Right.
말하는 거죠.
I was thinking though, if this sort of research was done in Korea, the results might be a little bit different
맞아요. 저도
because
그렇게
we have
생각해요.
that 전세 system.
그렇습니다. 네, 아마 저도 궁금해요. 이제 앞으로 이런 연구하시는 분들이 우리나라에서도 이런 걸 한번 해보면은 어떤 결과가 나올까?
Yeah.
과연 같을까, 다를까? 또 우리는 이제 세계에서 유일한 그런 전세 시스템이라는 게 있기 때문에 전세입자들과 그다음에 월세입자들의 차이,
A stress level.
이런 게
yeah.
굉장히 궁금하긴
Yeah,
해요.
yeah,
네.
very interesting study. I think it would be.
이런 연구 하시는 분들 부탁드립니다. 네, 저희가
Let us know.
관심이 있거든요. 자, 표현 보겠습니다. Often comes with something.
So something that comes with, it means to be present or associated with, or to accompany, go together, or occur with. So for example, weight gain is something that comes with late night snacks and excessive drinking.
아하, A often comes with B. A와 B는 동반되는 경우가 많다. 이런 뜻인데요. 지금 예문은 야식을 먹을 경우에는 체중 증가가 종종 동반이 된다.
Of course.
그렇죠. 뭐가 먼저인지 모르겠어요. 물론 이제 야식을 해서 살이 찌겠지만 또 계속 살이 찌다 보면 야식을
You
더
want
하고
it too. Yeah.
마음도 가끔 들더라고요. 경험상. 자, 그다음에 significant effects on health.
Right. So significant effect is like a large influence. So it means that it's something that affects your health to a noticeable degree.
네, 그래요. significant는 아주 주목할 만한 큰 상당한 그래서 significant effects on health 건강에 미치는 상당한 영향. 다시 읽어보겠습니다. Experts say the stress that often comes with renting can have significant effects on health, even greater than being obese or unemployed.
The New York Post has published a list of health benefits gained from abstaining from alcohol consumption, even for just 30 days, including a better night's sleep and improvements to brain function.
미국 매체 뉴욕 포스트가 최근 금주를 통해 얻을 수 있는 건강상의 이점을 소개했습니다. 이에 따르면 한 달만 술을 끊어도 숙면과 뇌 기능 개선 등의 효과를 얻는 것으로 나타났습니다. In a lot of English-speaking countries, there's this challenge in October,
Yeah.
right, where people try not to drink during that time.
Yeah, apparently they call it Sober October.
네, 그래요. 그냥 이제 그 사실 처음에는 아마 뭐 소셜 미디어나 이런 데서 챌린지로 시작이 됐던 것 같은데 이제 종종 영어권 국가에서는 10월은 금주의 달 이러면서 뭐 좀 한 달이라도 술을 안 마셔보자 이런 게 있어요.
Yeah.
제가 알기로는 1월은 보통 사람들이 와인 끊어보자 뭐 이런 것도 있는 것
really?
같고 근데 정확한 건 지금 기억이 안 나지만 새해 다짐이기도 하지만 네, 뭔가 이렇게 이번 한 달만큼은 뭘 해보자 이런 게 있거든요.
Right. Well, they say that Sober October, it actually started in the UK as a fundraiser for fighting cancer. So that kind of makes sense because
It does.
the study, as you can see,
Yeah.
they say just staying away for alcohol for just a month, it helps with a lot of different aspects of your health. So they say a 30-day break from alcohol or abstaining from alcohol for 30 days. It can improve your liver health. It can give you better night's sleep. It can lead to weight loss. It can help with your digestion. And it can also improve your brain function as well.
네, 5가지 이점이 있는 것으로 나타났는데요. 이제 미국의 CDC의 자료를 가지고 뉴욕 포스트가 분석을 해서 기사를 낸 겁니다. 5가지 이점은 간 건강 개선. 우리가 보통 그러잖아요. 간 때문이야. 내가 피곤한 게 간 기능 개선이 된답니다. 한 달만 술을 끊어도. 그다음에 수면 개선, 체중 감량, 소화 기능 개선, 그리고 뇌 기능 개선 이렇게 5가지가 있다고
I need
하는데요.
all of these.
술 끊으세요. 술 잘 안 드시잖아요.
Okay, so another thing that the article mentioned was how much do you think is moderate drinking?
How much is it? I don't know.
They say that 2 drinks a day or less for men and 1 drink a day or less for women is
Really?
moderate drinking. Yeah.
하긴 외국에서는 그냥 점심 때 샌드위치 먹으면서 맥주 한 잔
Like a
마시고
beer, yeah.
네, 그러는 경우도 많이 있긴 하죠. 그래서 하루에 한 잔이 적정하다고요?
yeah,
근데
moderate.
그래도 한 달은 좀 끊어보라는
Yeah,
거죠.
but one,
네.
yeah, just abstaining means no drinking.
맞아요.
Yeah.
자, 그래서 이 abstain이라는 표현이 나왔는데 끊다라는
Yes.
뜻이고요.
Right.
그 다음에 아까 말했던 이 10월에 하는 챌린지 sober October. 그래서 이 sober라는 게요. 맨정신이란 뜻입니다.
Right.
술 안 취했다라는 뜻으로 S-O-B-E-R.
Right.
술 마신 사람한테 Are you sober?
Yeah, it's the opposite of drunk. Yeah.
Exactly. 자, 그러면 한번 다시 읽어보겠습니다. The New York Post has published a list of health benefits gained from abstaining from alcohol consumption, even for just 30 days, including a better night's sleep and improvements to brain function. All right, it's time for us to have a look at today's headlines one by one. 자, 첫 번째 헤드라인부터 레이와 함께 살펴보겠습니다.
Unionized workers of the Seoul Metro have announced their intention to stage a general strike next month, calling for the withdrawal of management's plan to cut jobs.
서울교통공사 노동조합이 사측의 인력 감축 계획 철회를 요구하며 다음 달 총파업에 들어갈 것을 예고했습니다. Okay, so there could be a general strike.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So according to the union, the walkout will begin on November 9th, and the operation of Seoul Metro line. So this is kind of important if you live in Seoul. This will absolutely affect me if this actually happens. So the operation rate of Seoul Metro lines 1 to 4 will be at an average of 65.7%.
Okay.
Lines 5 through 8 will operate at just under 80% on weekdays. And on weekends, all subway lines will be operating at 50%.
1호선에서 4호선 같은 경우에는 운행률이 이제 파업을 할 경우에 65%로 뚝 떨어질 수 있고요. 5호선에서 8호선까지는 80%. 그리고 주말 같은 경우에는 over the weekend you said it could drop to
50%
for all lines.
All lines, exact. So that it'll be chaos.
아유, 그렇군요. 주말에는 이렇게 파업을 만약에 하게 될 경우에 운행률이 50%까지 뚝 떨어질 수도 있다라는 지금 전망이 나오고 있는 건데요. What are they calling for? What do they want? It says in the headlines, of course. Yeah.
A strike. So this threat of a strike is in response to Seoul Metro's management plan to lay off over 2,200 workers by 2026. The union leader said yesterday that the reduction and restructuring would end up threatening the safety of citizens and workers while lowering the quality of the public service. The union, they've requested that over 770 safety personnel are hired this year.
I
So
see.
they want more people hired. The
Not people laid off.
Management wants to lay off,
Wow.
3-4 times that amount.
And that's completely at the end of different spectrums.
Exactly.
그렇군요. 사측에서는 지금 인력을 줄일 것을 지금 제안하고 있지만 지금 노조 측에서는 인력을 줄이지 말아야 될 것뿐만 아니라 인력을 늘려달라 이런 얘기까지 나오고 있는 상황입니다. I still have a couple of days to go, but we hope that this strike won't happen.
Yes, definitely.
Let's look at the main expressions. The first one is to stage a general strike.
So a general strike was when workers refuse to work. Sometimes they'll call it a walkout. A lot of times you'll see these workers protesting. Maybe they have placards that say what they want. Usually we'll say that someone goes on strike. So these workers will go on strike.
Right.
Now, to stage a strike just means to do a strike. So you might see stage as well with words like protest, stage a protest, for example.
stage라는 동사가 쓰였을 때 마치 뭔가 무대에 올리는 것처럼 보여준다라는 뜻이 있을 수 있습니다. 그래서 행하다, 이런 행동을 한다라는 거고요. General strike는 총파업입니다. 그래서 stage a general strike라고 하고요. 그 다음으로는 they want withdrawal of the management's plan.
Right, they want them to just end that plan. Take it off the table, get rid of it. So withdrawal can be used in that way to end something. It can be used in a lot of different ways. In military, we'll talk about troops withdrawing from an area. The one that you'll see that most people would encounter would be withdrawing money from the bank.
Of course.
So if you go to a bank machine, even you can do this in Korea, you can push the button for English
Yeah.
and you'll see withdrawal.
Maybe our listeners should do that
Yeah,
the
try
next
it and
time
you'll
they
see
go
it.
to an ATM.
Sure.
네, 현금 인출기에 가셔서 다음에 시간 여유가 좀 있으시면은요 언어 바꿔가지고 영어로 한번 그 화면에 있는 단어들을 슉 바꿔서 한번 보세요. 그러면은 현금 인출 그게 영어로는 withdrawal이라고 합니다. 자, 여기서 나오는 withdrawal이 그래서 그런 현금을 뽑다라는 뜻이 될 수도 있고 아니면 계획을 철회하다라는 뜻도 될 수 있는 거죠. 전혀 다른 뜻이지만 한 단어에 이렇게 여러 가지 의미가 있다는 거 기억해 주시고 은행에 가서 돈을 인출했다라는 예문을 또 레이 선생님이 주셨습니다. 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. Unionized workers of the Seoul Metro have announced their intention to stage a general strike next month, calling for the withdrawal of management's plan to cut jobs. Now let's move on to the line.
South Korea's pension system has been ranked 42nd out of 47 retirement income systems reviewed in an annual global index that analyzes adequacy, sustainability, and integrity, receiving an overall score of C.
전 세계 연금 제도의 적정성, 지속 가능성, 운용 관리 등 3개 분야를 분석하는 연례 글로벌 연금 지수에서 우리나라는 종합 점수 C를 받으며 전체 47개국 중 42위를 기록했습니다. It's not a good score.
No, I never. My mom was never happy if I got a C in school. So yeah, C's not great.
There's only 5 countries behind Korea on this list.
Right.
Okay, and this was by
This was by the Mercer CFA Institute Global Pension. They publish this annually. This was the 15th year that they've done this.
Yeah.
The Netherlands once again was first place. Netherlands was first place. Iceland and Denmark were second and third. Argentina came in last, and we've talked about all the economic problems in Argentina. So
Yeah.
that's not super surprising to me, anyways, that I see Argentina there.
Well, if we look at the sub-indices separately, adequacy, actually, Korea came in at the bottom of the whole 47 countries for that. So it did very poorly in that sense. Sustainability, I believe it was a C. So adequacy was a D.
Okay.
Sustainability, I believe, was a C. And then integrity, a B. So
Okay.
slightly better than the rest. But overall, C.
Right. I did read something that said the report revealed that falling birth rates, which we know Korea has,
Yeah.
that puts pressure on pension systems over the longer term. So that is what negatively affects the sustainability scores.
Ah, I see. And that's why it's really not great, as you
Right.
can see here.
It also, the report that I read mentioned that many Asian systems, so China, Korea, Singapore, Japan, all of them have undertaken reforms recently to try and improve their scores. So that's probably why integrity was a little bit higher. That must have been where they improved.
네, 운용 관리 같은 경우에는요, compared to last year, 이제 매해 나오니까 조금 올랐습니다. 그렇지만 적정성과 지속 가능성은 조금 떨어졌고요. 전반적으로 그래서 C라는 그레이드를 받으면서 47개국 중에서 최하위권이죠. 42위를 기록했는데 자, 표현을 보도록 하겠습니다. The main expression is to be ranked.
Ranked. So a ranking is when you look at a list, right? So where you're ranked is your position on that list. And this list usually measures quality of something, right? So if you look at any sports league and you want to see who the best teams are, you can look at the standings of the table, and that's a ranking.
Yeah.
So the higher you are on that list, on the table, the better you are. The lower, the worse you are.
Be ranked. 순위가 매겨지다. Your example sentence.
This school is ranked among the top universities in the country.
오, 이 학교가 이 전국에 있는 대학교 중에서 이제 탑 순위 안에 든다. 이런 뜻이고요. Adequacy.
Well, all of these words, like I can just sort of go through them quickly. So
Yeah.
adequacy would be quality. How good is it? Sustainability would refers to can it be maintained into the future? Can you keep this level? Or is it going to really decrease? And integrity in this case would mean strength, robustness, soundness. How strong is the system?
이 세 가지 척도를 다 설명을 해주셨는데요. Adequacy 같은 경우에는 quality를 얘기하는 것이다. 적정성이라고 번역을 하고 있고요. 그 다음에는 sustainability는 우리가 환경 얘기할 때도 많이 언급을 하는 거죠. 지속 가능성. 마지막으로 integrity라는 것이 You described it
Strength.
as strength.
Right, you can talk about the integrity of a structure, right? How strong is it? Is it good? Is the foundation strong enough to withstand some type of shock?
그러니까 사실 얼마나 견고한가 이런 의미인데 여기서는요 운용 관리라고 번역을 하고 있습니다.
I imagine it
실제로.
might also refer to their investment strategy as
Yeah.
well. And like with adequacy, if you refer to something or someone as adequate, it means it's good enough. Like if you say, "Oh, this is," if you hand in a report and your
Yeah.
boss, "Oh, it's adequate," it doesn't seem like they're raving about it, but
Right.
it's good enough.
충분해. 이 정도 느낌으로 말할 수도 있는 단어가 되겠네요. 다시 읽어볼게요. South Korea's pension system has been ranked 42nd out of 47 retirement income systems reviewed in an annual global index that analyzes adequacy, sustainability, and integrity, receiving an overall score of C. Headlines. This is headline number 3.
1 in 3 adults in Korea is considered obese, with more than half of men in their 30s being obese, according to a recent survey by the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
질병관리청이 최근 실시한 조사 결과 우리나라 성인 3명 중 1명이 비만으로 집계되며 30대 남성의 비만율은 절반을 넘는 것으로 나타났습니다. A lot of people are overweight.
Yeah, overweight and obese aren't even the same thing. So
that's true.
obese is very overweight.
Yeah.
Like not just a little chubby, it's very overweight, and with obesity, or if someone's considered obese, it's unhealthy. It's to a level of like you could have serious health consequences for carrying that much extra weight. Now, one of the interesting things that I found out when I was reading this is that the international standard for obesity is different than the Korean standard.
Oh, what
so
is that?
Korean stats are way higher than what it is internationally. So this headline is a little bit
Skewed.
it's massively skewed. So we call it BMI, body mass index. So the international standard is 30 or more for being considered obese. In Korea, it's 25. Now, what does that mean? Well, okay, here's an article I found that this was from 2018. Okay, so Korea reported obesity in 2018 as 34.6%. 34 that's big.
Okay, yep.
But the OECD, guess what they said Korea's obesity rate was?
What?
5.9%.
Wow.
So it's majorly skewed. But one other thing was, so there's been debate about this, right? Should Korea conform to the international standards?
Or should the world conform to us?
I don't think anyone said that, but there was debate about should Korea conform to the rest of the world, right?
Right.
So last year, though, the Korean Society for the Study of Obesity, they recommended that Korea maintains this standard of 25 for the BMI, and they cited research that said that for East Asian people, health risks rose significantly if you had a BMI of 25 or above. Whereas, like if you have a BMI of between 25 and 30. Internationally, you would just be considered overweight, not obese. And in English, obese is a very offensive term.
그래요. 자, 여러 가지 얘기를 지금 해주셨는데 정리를 하자면은 BMI라고 하잖아요. 체질량 지수. 우리나라에서는 25 이상이면은 비만으로 보는데 이게 우리나라에서만 그렇다라는 게 이제 레이 선생님의 리서치 결과다라고 지금 말씀해 주셨어요. 국제적으로는 30 이상이어야지 비만으로 보는 것이기 때문에 그래서 우리나라에서 다소 비만율이 높게 나오는 것을 또 국제적인 기준으로 봤을 때는 맞지가 않더라. 심지어 이제 OECD 얘기를 하시면서 OECD에서는 우리나라에서 한 6% 정도의 사람만 비만이다라고 하는데 우리나라에서는 35%가 비만이다라고 하니까 이게 좀 차이가 많이 나네요.
That was 2018, but it shows the difference, right? It shows so
interesting.
if they're saying, I think last year it was like 37% in Korea was considered obese. So what's that going to be? Probably 6-7% internationally.
네.
But it's much lower.
근데 그 근거에 대해서도 잠깐 언급을 해주셨는데 왜 그러냐면은 이제 동양 사람들의 체질과 서양 사람들의 체질이 좀 다르기 때문에 그래서 아마 요 BMI가 좀 다르게 기준이 매겨진 게 아닐까 이런 얘기까지 해주셨습니다. 자, 그래서 표현 한번 볼게요. About a third of Koreans are considered obese. Now
Right.
let's look at that.
Okay, you want to look
Yeah,
at
the expressions.
considered.
Oh, is that not one of our expressions?
Yeah, it is, right?
Yeah,
To be considered something. So that means to be thought of as. So in Korea, they consider, 1 in 3 people to be obese.
Yeah.
Internationally, it would be way less, right? So many other countries would not consider a huge chunk of those people,
Yeah.
no pun intended using the word chunk, to be obese.
네. Be considered something. 무엇으로 간주되다. And obese, of course, the noun form would be obesity. 비만이죠. Here it is one more time. 1 in 3 adults in Korea is considered obese, with more than half of men in their 30s being obese, according to a recent survey by the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. All right, well, let's move on to the next headline.
Water level at a major river port in Brazil's Amazon rainforest has hit its lowest point in at least 121 years, leaving boats stranded, cutting off food and water supplies to remote jungle villages, and damaging the jungle ecosystem.
브라질 아마존 열대우림 지역의 주요 항에서 측정한 아마존강 수위가 121년 만에 최저치로 떨어졌습니다. 이로 인해 보트가 발이 묶이고 외딴 마을의 식량과 물 공급이 중단됐으며 정글 생태계가 타격을 입고 있습니다. Let's have a look at this. What's going on?
Yeah, this is this was the port of Manaus. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Manaus. Manaus. So they recorded a water level of 13.6 meters on Monday. According to their website, that's the lowest level since records began being kept in 1902. And it also surpassed a previous all-time low, which was set in 2010.
와, 기록이 시작된 1902년 이래로 이제 가장 낮은 수위를 보였습니다. It's just getting lower and lower, it looks like.
Yeah, so Brazil's science ministry, they've blamed this on drought. So some of the areas of the Amazon this year, they've seen the lowest rain levels from July to September since 1980. So over 40 years, they the very, very low levels of rain. Brazil's science ministry blamed this year's drought on the climate phenomenon known as El Nino, which I think everyone's heard of. And this is obviously driving extreme weather patterns globally. They said in a statement earlier this month that they expect the drought will last until at least December. That's when El Nino's effects are forecasted to peak.
올해 벌써 이제 최악의 가뭄, drought를 겪고 있는데 이게 연말까지도 이어질 가능성이 있다. 그로 인해서 수위가 많이 내려간 걸로 보여집니다. The first expression to look at here is to be stranded.
It's when you're stuck. You can't move. So if a boat is stranded, it can't move. We also talk about like a person could be stranded.
Yeah.
So you could be somewhere, you're not in your house, you're kind of far away from your home, and you don't have a car, you don't have money for transportation. You're stranded. You can't go anywhere.
예, 오도 가도 못하는 상황이 되겠죠. To be stranded. 발이 묶이다 이렇게 표현하기도 하고요. And something that's remote.
Far away. If we talk about something being far away, so usually we'll talk about villages being remote, or someone might live in a remote part of town,
Yeah.
far away from other people.
And we might use a remote control.
Sure.
멀리 있다라는 뜻이 있습니다. 여기서는 remote villages니까 외딴 마을이 되겠네요. All right, well, here it is one more time. The water level at a major river port in Brazil's Amazon rainforest has hit its lowest point in at least 121 years, leaving boats stranded, cutting off food and water supplies to remote jungle villages, and damaging the jungle ecosystem. Fine.
A global team of researchers has concluded that a coin is likely to land on the same side it started on 51% of the time, altering one of society's most traditional assumptions about random decision-making.
해외 한 공동 연구진이 실험 끝에 무작위적인 의사 결정 방법인 동전 던지기를 했을 때 확률이 반반일 거라는 세간의 믿음과는 달리 동전은 처음 올려놓은 면으로 떨어질 가능성이 51%라는 결론을 내놨습니다. This is used in sports. You know, which
American
team's going to go
football.
first?
Yep.
Yeah, it can be used in the office. It can be used among friends. Who's
Sure.
going to do something first? What are we going to have for lunch? You know, but we now know, according to this study, it's not 50%.
Not
Sorry,
50-50. They're
No.
saying it's 50.8. So it's very, very close.
51-49.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So the authors of this new paper, they conducted over 350,000 flips, and they used different coins, to take out that bias.
Yeah.
They also used a variety of people because maybe they have a flipping bias. So they found, regardless of the coin, if you take out the bias of the way someone might flip, it was 50.8% that would land on the same side it started on. Now, there is one caveat to this. The way they did it was you have the coin you flip it up in the air and just catch it.
Yeah.
So it's when you catch it, how does it land?
Okay.
But what most people do is
They-
catch the coin and then put it on their hand so you flip it over.
Yeah.
Then that reverses it.
Yeah, it does.
So then it's actually 50.8% of the time. If you flip it, it's the bottom side. And that's how most people do it. That's how I do it. So it's actually the bottom side might be better.
자, 여러분 지금 잘 따라오고 계신가요? 이게 좀 복잡하게 들리긴 하는데 심플한 얘기예요. 뭐냐면은 우리가 쉽게 생각할 때 50대 50의 가능성으로 동전 던지기 했을 때 이게 헤드가 나오냐 테일이 나오냐 인 줄 알았는데 정확하게 한 35만 번 던지기를 하면서 연구를 해보니까 50이 아니라 51%. 딱 1% 정도의 오차가 우리가 그동안에 생각했던 것에 있었던 거죠. 51%의 가능성으로 처음 동전의 윗면이 던졌을 때 그 윗면이 다시 내려올 가능성이 살짝 더 있다라는 겁니다. 네, 그래서 다음에 여러분이 이걸 생각하시면서 내가 동전의 위쪽을 배팅할지 아래쪽을 배팅할지 확률로 한번 따져보시길 바라겠어요. So we were off by 1%. And it's not 50-50.
No, apparently not.
Okay, so the main expressions would be, first of all, to alter.
To alter something.
To alter something, yeah.
Simply to change.
Yes.
Change something. So you get a haircut, that might alter your appearance.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about, I'm sure people today, right, with the weather, it's raining, that might alter their plans, right? Maybe you have to leave a little bit earlier
Yes.
than normal to get to work.
바꾸게 하다.
We also talk about you can get your clothes altered. You
Yes.
can I need some alterations on my
right.
clothes.
그때는 이제 옷 수선이라는 뜻이 됩니다. 그래서 보통은 뭔가가 바뀌다, 변하다, alter your appearance, alter your plans 이렇게 쓸 수도 있지만 또 I need to get my clothes altered 이러면 옷 수선해야 돼 이런 뜻이죠. Assumption은요?
That is something that is believed to be true. We think it's true. We think it's correct.
Right.
But sometimes assumptions can be wrong.
That's right. 네, 추정하는 것들, 추측하는 거. 당연히 동전 던지면은 50대 50의 가능성으로 heads or tails 나올 줄 알았는데 그 assumption이 살짝 틀렸습니다. Let me read it one more time. A global team of researchers has concluded that a coin is likely to land on the same side it started on 51% of the time, altering one of society's most traditional assumptions about random decision making. Okay, well, those were our headlines.